As I mentioned, unfortunately, Bill and Zach were unable to be here today, but the four of us, myself, Deborah, Bill, and Zach, were the ones who all participated in the Biloxi mission trip here about just over a month ago now.
Bill and Zach, they know I like to talk more than they do, so I think this was intentional.
So we're gonna share some of our experience with you guys here today. Unfortunately, I did have some technical issues trying to get the slideshow put together, but we're gonna have pictures in the upcoming cross connection. So make sure that even if you don't pay much attention to the cross connection, you should pay attention to the cross connection for this upcoming week because you're gonna see some cool pictures in there.
And there were some pictures that were on the Facebook page, so you can go to the church's Facebook page, or you can wrangle me after church because I have several on my phone.
Yes. Deborah, would you like to start us off with sharing some of your experiences for the Biloxi mission trip? Excellent. All right, here's Deborah.
So I decided to go on the Biloxi mission trip, not because I wanted to go serve anyone, not because I was feeling charitable, not because I was really just interested in finding out about what was going on in Biloxi. I went on the Biloxi mission trip because I felt like I was stuck. I felt like I was, even though my life was good and things were happy, I just felt like I was in a rut in my faith, a rut in my faith in humanity, just like I couldn't move myself forward from my patterns of where I was living every single day. And I know you're supposed to start out on one of these trips with this big charitable heart and be ready and open. And I was just like, I need something to do different, something to change. And for me, the biggest thing this trip gave me was the ability to set everything in my life aside and focus on what was happening right in front of me. And what was happening right in front of me was a focus on people, on individuals, in an effort to solve a systemic cultural problem. So they weren't out there to say, I'm going to fix homelessness. They were out there to work with individual people who were homeless, to talk to them, to understand their goals, to see what they wanted, to set life patterns for them, to get them looking beyond the day they were in, to really know and respect them as people. And you felt that when you were a volunteer there. You felt respected, and you felt like you were there to give respect to other individuals, no matter what you were doing. I don't know how many of you know much about Back Bay. You get multiple different types of opportunities to serve. You can serve at a soup kitchen, you can serve in a food pantry, you can serve in a day shelter, you can serve at a job site, right? The consistent pattern for every one of those things was kind of a focus on where you were, who you were with, and what you were doing. And it was very different than kind of our rat race, right? Where we're running around going, this is my next thing. That was not what this was about. This is the most important thing now. If I'm sitting there talking to Mr. Willie, the homeowner, and maybe not putting up siding, that was the most important thing at that moment, to talk to him, to know him, to understand that he used to be a police officer and how he met his beautiful wife and how they ended up having their grandchildren live in their home. And no one looked around the corner and was like, get to work, right? So Mississippi is a little warm and a little humid. Probably like this past week, okay? But I wasn't ready for that coming off a Minnesota winter in June. And my face, with my lovely Norwegian and German background, would get bright red. And it didn't mean anything about how much water I was drinking or if I was getting heat stroke or any of those things. It meant that I was a Minnesotan coming off of winter and thrust myself into 93 degrees with a lot of humidity. But I can't tell you how many people took time out of their day to have the conversation with me, to make sure I was really okay. So it happens on both sides, right? And as we're there and as we're working, the job site was my personal favorite, I'll confess. The laughter. I don't think I had laughed so much all winter long as I laughed in those days on the job site. And just felt great. We worked with another church who had mainly girls, teaching them some carpentry skills. Oh my gosh, cheerleading. It was so much fun to just encourage them. You're doing great. What a great job to overcome your fear of heights and get up on this roof with me. I guess that's what really made the biggest difference for me. And getting to know Austin and getting to know Bill better and getting to know Zach better. I mean, I've known Zach a long time, but just to understand more about them and where they're coming from and their family, and just to reinforce that we care about each other. I know as a church community, we all care intently about each other, but I do feel like sometimes we get stuck in our ruts. We get in our habits. We go home and we exhibit it. We pray silently and we call names and we know what's going on in each other's lives and we care intently. But sometimes that doesn't always translate when you're face to face and you're running out of church to go somewhere, right? And it was just a week out of time to care intently about other people. And I really felt like Back Bay spent their time caring intently about other people. Do you want me to say some more? Are you bored yet?
I'll take it for a second. Yes, I will just start things off by saying this. I was the sole driver of the 18-and-a-half-hour drive one way. And let me tell you, yeah, I'm not doing that again. I'm sorry. No, we would love to go back, but I definitely am going to pay the extra a little bit, like of whatever it is, to have more than one authorized driver on the rental car, because holy cow, that was intense. But it was a great experience being able to be the driver and be the person to kind of take that over, because then there was a lot of very natural, fluid conversation between all of us in the car, and that's something that I wasn't really sure whether that would happen or not. You know, I wasn't sure if people were going to be kind of engrossed in watching, you know, the next Netflix show, or people were going to be listening to their music, or quite frankly, if people were going to be asleep the whole time. I just wasn't really sure. But I was very pleasantly surprised to be able to have some awesome conversations with Deborah, with Bill, and with Zach, and all of us just having this natural time together to continue to grow closer, even in the times where we weren't there yet, which just was a helpful, I just thought that was an awesome time. One of the most profound memories and experiences that I got to have while we were down there was, I mainly helped out in the food pantry side of things throughout the week, and I really came to enjoy that quite a bit, and there's something incredibly powerful and incredibly humbling about being there, being, I think, anywhere, but for me, we were in Mississippi, and being able to give people something that they needed for that day. And just to sometimes see the tears coming down people's faces of the Micah Day Center clients. There's a guy who came in, and he'd literally just gotten out of jail. He was trying to make his way back home because he got picked up for having an expired license while he was on his way back home. Didn't even live in the state of Mississippi, and ended up having to get thrown in jail because of a couple of other things that were kind of outstanding. And came out of jail, and one of the first places he came was here to be able to get some food and to be able to get some water to be able to go on his trip, and just the tears streaming down his face as he was just saying, "Thank you so much for being able to give this to us," and just being able to have those moments, even of just the staff and us being able to pray with each of the people who are coming in, if they allowed us to, and just the stories that we got a chance to hear. There was one woman who she kind of considered herself to be almost like a mom in the homeless community, and was doing her best to try and make sure that everybody was doing okay and trying to check in on people even if they knew that they were having problems with drug addiction or different things like that. And for her to be able to come in and again be able to take advantage of being able to get some food for herself and be able to just not have to worry for a little while before having to go back out was really powerful. And Mr. Willie and all the different people that we got a chance to work with, it was just so incredible. I know Deborah briefly mentioned Mr. Willie, but he's a gentleman who his daughter had a couple of kids, and she ended up she kind of ended up struggling through life a little bit and ended up being in jail. And Mr. Willie adopted her 3 kids and took care of her kids along with his wife. And his wife was in the hospital and probably was never going to be able to make it home while we were down there. And there's just a lot of work that needed to be done in his house because of storm damage. And so being able to step in and be able to help provide things to an elderly man who is on the verge of losing his wife, who's walking with a little cart roller because he can't walk on his own, and being able to come in and take care of those things for him that he couldn't do on his own, and that his grandchildren weren't able to do either, just was really helpful. Getting storm siding up onto the roof and getting that installed in a way that is professional and is going to last. So those are just some of the things for me that really stood out. And I know Zach isn't here, but I do know there are a couple of things that really stood out for Zach as well. One of which he continually told me how much he loved that he got a chance to learn the different kinds of skills and the different kinds of construction techniques as we were working on the sites. I got a chance to teach him how to use a circular saw, which those are very fun to use. Taught him how to be able to install linoleum flooring. And so it was fantastic to be able to work so closely with Zach as well, and I think that we got a chance to really bond. And so that was really wonderful. Deborah, I'm sure you have more to say.
So Austin and Zach spent quite a bit of time together, and actually Bill and I spent a lot of time together doing fascia, outside the siding that covers the trim. And again, I don't think I've laughed so hard in forever.
Yeah, a lot of laughing.
A lot of laughing. But I think the real thought process behind the program, and we kind of hit on that, is like Mr. Willie, for example, needed all this work, and we cleared out his yard, and we put up the fascia. They'd reinstalled a new roof for him. But they were also offering classes and having the teenagers go to classes on home maintenance. So the house had kind of fallen into this incredible state of disarray, right? Like over the years, as Mr. Willie had gotten older, as his wife had gotten sicker and sicker, he had been unable to do it. Actually, they had told me that a neighbor had actually called Back Bay because they'd found Mr. Willie, who can barely walk, right? One leg almost doesn't move, up on his roof trying to fix a hole, okay? And they come in and there is damage literally in every room of this home. And they get the plumbing going, and they get the electrical working, and they get the kitchen redone, and they get all of these things done because the house has fallen down so far. And the kids, all those years never learned. They were little, and Mr. Willie couldn't maintain it at that time. His health and his wife's health so they never learned how to maintain it. And now they're going to classes. Now that the house is a level where it's maintainable, the kids are going to classes. These teenagers who are, I believe, 13, 15, and 16 are going to classes to learn how to do basic house maintenance. So it's another prong of their program, is not to just sort of leave people by the wayside, but how do we help keep them maintaining, right? So they talk about, we had Sarah come in, and she's one of their leaders that works with the homeless. She has apartments where they can house the homeless. She works specifically with people who have mental illness, if I'm remembering correctly. But a big part of that is your goal even to have a home? You might not feel safe in a home. That might not make you feel good. You might have your tent in the woods, and you might have it set up that you feel really comfortable there with your mental illness. And that going to an apartment and hearing cars and having those experiences are really a negative for you and a detriment to your health in a mental health sort of way. And they need to spend the time with each individual to really understand what's going to help them. And so she spends a lot of time in the homeless community, learning the homeless mores. What does it mean? How do you enter someone's home when it's a tent on a piece of public property, or when you're going under a bridge? What does that mean? Because you're walking into someone's home. And we don't think of it that way, right? We think of it as you've got a tent up on a piece of public property. But to them, that's their house. That's where they live, and that's their private space. And so thinking about all those kinds of things and approaching people as people, and then how do we get them from living day to day to living week to week, to month, to year. One of the things they used to say is we're all only a situation away from a situation, right? You never know when a medical issue of a family member might take all your money and leave you homeless. You never know when a lost job, because you've been living to paycheck might leave you homeless. You never know if you pay those choices. Someday a lost job or a medical situation might leave you in a choice: do I feed my family or do I pay my rent? Right? And it was really about the humanity. So they had, like I talked about, the 4 programs. So they had the food pantry where Austin worked, and I never got the opportunity to work there, but they tried to make people feel valued. You got to shop like it was your grocery store. Yep, there were restrictions, but you got to go in and feel like you could select the food for your family. And I don't know how many of you have gone to a regular food shelf, but you kind of get handed a bag, right? And you may or may not like what's in the bag, and you may or may not be able to cook for your family with what's in the bag, right? Here you got to choose what your family could eat, what your dietary restrictions might be, right? The same, the Micah Day Center. They offered to use their address and phone on job applications. Because when you're homeless, you don't have an address, right? You can't get a job when you don't have an address. So it's a never-ending cycle. And it's about treating people with respect.
Yeah, there's just a huge emphasis on maintaining respect and dignity for every single person who we came in contact with, regardless of where they came from, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of any of those things, allowing people who are asking for help to be able to come in and be treated just like you or I would. And I thought that was incredible and amazing. So yeah, I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time here. But if you do get a chance to see Zach and Bill, be sure to ask them about it, and I'm sure that they would love to be able to tell you. I know we haven't seen them for a little while. We have a question. Yeah.
Was it some organization you hooked up with down there? And how did you find out about that organization?
Yes, great question. So the organization that we worked with, so yes, we did work with an organization, and they were called Back Bay Mission. And again, in the cross-connection for this week, I'll be sure to include a link to their website so that all of you get a chance to kind of look to see some of the different things that we've been talking about here today. So we went down to Back Bay Mission, and that was the organization that we were working with the entire time that we were down there. Are there any other questions now that?
So he asked how we hooked up with them.
Oh, yeah,
They're actually out of United Church of Christ, so they're part of the denomination. Did everyone hear me? They're actually out of the United Church of Christ, so they're part of the denomination, and it's my understanding that Obed took people there years ago.
Yeah, when she was in youth group, so actually, I was not 11 years old, that was. But, yeah, so that's when they had, I think that's when they took the bus down.
Yeah.
School bus, I remember.
Yeah, school bus, no air conditioning. Middle of summer, how about that? So when I was having the initial talks with Brian about getting a mission trip planned together back in December and January, Back Bay Mission got brought up as a place that we've gone before and had really excellent experiences with. And that really just stood out to me. And as I looked further on their website, as I learned more about them, I just thought, yeah, this is going to be a place that we really want to go to. So. Yes.
Do they only service there in Mississippi, or is it all projects all over the country?
Yeah, so Back Bay Mission specifically works in the Biloxi community, but there are a number of other food shelves, food pantries, and other organizations that do similar work in the area throughout the state of Mississippi. And one of the things that they actually try and do is they try and as they think through the model of how they do things, how they treat people, how the service is set up, they really are intentional about trying to teach that to other people as well. And so other organizations or others who are interested in trying to get something similar started up in their home state, for instance, to be able to give them some of those resources and some of the ways that they actually have planned things so that people all around the country and, hopefully eventually even all around the world can receive that dignity and that treatment in a similar way. So
Did they still provide housing for you guys then?
they did, yes. Which I've got to say, I was blown away at the housing that they were able to provide for us down there. It was very, very accommodating.
It was gorgeous.
It was gorgeous, yeah.
I mean, you had like a professional kitchen, and you could go shopping, they would tell you where the store was, and you could cook all your meals in their professional kitchen, which was, I'm not a cook, but hey.
I got to make my homemade pizza sauce, serve everybody. That was fun.
And then they had two, like a male and female bunk rooms, and then each of the bunk rooms had their own sort of set of showers and bathrooms that were right across the hall. And then they had a main area, of course, off the kitchen, which was in the center, where you could eat and play games. And then they had like a living room area with couches where you could just sort of lounge.
It was perfect. I mean, it was really just the perfect environment for our group and for the group from California to be able to come together. We shared meals together. We got a chance to talk with one another, both just there and as we were driving to and from the different job sites, and had some game nights. I got to teach people spicy Uno, and we had a great time playing that. And even though Deborah escaped from it, she doesn't want to learn how to play that. But so it was really a beautiful space, and really was an awesome place for us to be able to recharge at the end of the day.
And the other part that I guess really impressed me is right from the first day, they emphasized that you do what you can, you do what you need to, and you stop when you stop. So if for some reason I couldn't push through the day, if I became exhausted, I stopped. And there was no judgment and no, well, you have to keep going. There was no pressure that way. And I've been on mission trips in the past, and this was sort of maybe when I was younger, so maybe I could understand that a little more, where they were kind of like, nope, everybody goes, everybody does it, everybody works the whole time. And it was, you felt pressure. And there wasn't that here. It was, you know what you can do. If I'm asking of you a task that you can't do, it's not a big deal. Just say, I can't. And that's it. So that respect went all the way around to everyone, from volunteers to the people we served to everyone, all the way through.
Do we have any other quick questions before we close the timeout? All right. Well, even though we had just a very small group, I know a lot of people expressed a lot of interest to be able to come on the trip initially when it was first announced back in January. And unfortunately, as time went on, we just had less and less people who were able to actually commit. But I think that even just having that small group that we did, being able to have such an incredible experience, I think all of us are kind of hopeful that we'll be able to get a chance to go back this upcoming year again, potentially, And hopefully, through us talking about this and continuing to talk about this experience throughout the year, hopefully we'll be able to bring even more people next year. And it was just an awesome experience for all of us who were able to go. I think all of us learned so much, and we're very thankful and very grateful that we were able to go because of all of your guys' support financially, through prayer, and through all the ways that each of you provide here in this community. So we just want to thank you so much for providing us that opportunity. With that, we will end that time. So thank you.